Now, in the NFT space on Cardano, we have services like NMaker and Anvil and Metro Mermaids, for example, that do all of these big NFT drop minting services. So if you have a large collection, they handle those type of mints and they do an absolutely amazing job. But what about GameFi, where you need to mint on demand? So you're playing a game, you're leveling up, you're earning gear, and as you progress through a game, you need to be able to mint those assets on the fly as you play the game. So services like Revlar are doing just that, and they're fulfilling that need, that niche, where game developers need and want to integrate with blockchain technology, but don't have the functionality or ability to do so. And having this infrastructure that Revelar are creating really fulfills that need. And I'm pretty excited to see what they come up with and what the future is looking like after they've integrated all these games in. So they're doing it for their own game, Duo, and they're doing it on-demand minting for a card extension pack called the Disco Solaris extension. And I did manage to get one of those, thankfully, so thank you guys for helping me through that process. It's absolutely amazing. I love Disco Solaris. You got the that PFP there, and I absolutely love the project. And having projects like them try out and mint with Revlar is a really cool and interesting experience. So let's see what the future holds for Revlar and what type of games and that they integrate into their platform. All right, let's get into this interview. I have Jason and Jacob from Revlar. They're going to talk about their platform that they've built to support and develop their Duo game. So I've had Jason on before to talk about the game, and we're going to learn a little bit more about the underlying infrastructure that they've built out and is going to be hopefully powering other games in the ecosystem as well. So guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Yeah. And at CNFTCon too. So it's been awesome. Awesome 2 days. Now, let's get a little bit of an idea of what you guys are actually building and why you're building it as well. So who wants to start first?
I can jump in. I think that when we were talking last about Duo, especially, we were really taking this approach to learn, like, what did we need to build for gamers and how can we highlight the power of Web3 to really facilitate an advantage, right? Because just to add blockchain to gaming isn't as interesting as being able to build something of value for the gamers that they don't get in Web 2. And we noticed that a lot of the tools that we needed to build Duo the way that we wanted and kind of take advantage of that didn't exist at the time. And so that's where we're like, well, we're just gonna have to do that ourselves, and Revlar was born kind of out of that vision, so.
Yeah, I think the last time you had Jason on for Duo was like predating all of the Revelar stuff because like you said, it kind of ran into like our own roadblocks. And then we were kind of thinking, well, if we need all this stuff, there's probably other people that are going to need this as well. So we proposed in Project Catalyst. We got funded in Catalyst Fund 7 and Fund 8, and then built out a lot of those back-end systems. So
yeah. So what have you guys actually built? Like, what are these stumbling roadblocks that that came into that you had to like get around and build yourselves to make your game possible?
So I think one of the elements that we saw early on was we struggled to find kind of scalable solutions for on-demand minting. So there's kind of this traditional model of just dropping a big block of NFTs, right? It's a pre-scheduled time. Maybe they mint the NFTs beforehand and then just send them out as they're being purchased or reserved. And then, so there's multiple different ways to do that, whether it's vending machine or multi-sig, and NMaker is kind of like the big facilitator of a lot of that. And we thought that solved a really critical piece of the kind of the collectible space and the art space, but we wanted to focus on what does user-generated content look like, and how can you create content on the fly where maybe you can get the game assets to the player right now, and then follow up with the minting or the on-chain transaction kind of later or in the background. So they can keep playing, but they don't have to worry about that because the onboarding experience needs to be really fluid and simple. And so there's a couple of things that we wanted to tackle. The first one for us was, how do we do truly a blind lottery drop And we have kind of a two-stage multi-sig transaction where you would actually get a pack that we hash with the cards that you're going to receive when you exchange that pack in. So you actually get this placeholder NFT that is already hashed, so we can't like change what cards you're going to get. It's already tied in our database to the cards you're going to receive, and then when you transact that, we check the sale conditions again to make sure that that wallet is only supposed to get one, only has one. We can run it through, so that stops a lot of the bot incentives, because even if they got the placeholder NFT and had paid for it, if they still don't meet sale conditions when they exchange it for the actual game assets, then they're just going to be out of their money. And so we wanted to kind of take a new approach on how do we combat bot attacks that are really just attacking this like buying expectation that has been set in the marketplace. And for games, you really do want to support that true blind lottery, where when you're starting a multi-sig, you don't just check the metadata and say like, yeah, I don't want that one, like cancel the transaction and run it again. Yeah.
I didn't realize that you could check the metadata in the multi-sig, see what you're getting, go, no.
Yeah, because you're pre-signing the transaction, right?
Oh yeah, no shit, okay.
And there's a lot of things like this in gaming that kind of change the way we have to think about NFTs, right? So it's very different in an art drop where you're just kind of vending out art pieces and collectible items, versus game assets have to be super dynamic, right? So I like to think about Revelar, especially where we are now, is kind of like how do we generate those assets on the fly, user-generated content, right? Like if I want to create an asset within my game and then use that in real time, then like the minting on that, right? So how do we make sure that for loot boxes or packs or something like that, you're not finding out what you're getting ahead of time, and then the management of that, right? So among all of these players, they're trading assets and transacting and unlocking and changing or modifying assets, and we have to be able to like manage all of that in our game, and we have to have it be able to be done really quickly, because nobody wants to sit and like wait for a transaction to roll up on chain before they can like start playing the next phase of the game or whatever. So there's just some things that change to make a lot of that content have to happen a lot more dynamically, and that's kind of what Revelar's focus is.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
I think we have an approach that I hope people see as like kind of in alignment with the beginning days of Cardano, which is like this federated approach where Cardano spent a lot of time, IOG spent a lot of time figuring out how do we build a really stable build and a node that we can deploy, and then from a federated position like start decentralizing all of that. Yeah. And we realized for gamers it's going to be very similar for a lot of games. They're going to come in and they don't want to do a lot of the infrastructure stuff. They don't know how to do it. They don't have time to train their developers on managing UTXOs or EUTXOs, even just before smart contracts come into the mix. And we want to make sure that we enable them to ship their games and those experiences to the user in a way that doesn't add another layer of complexity up front, right? Yeah. If they're learning as they continue to play the game, that's fine. And I think that's very powerful. That's why in Duo, a lot of how the game mechanics are played mimic blockchain education. So for example, as we release our web app, the way that a game of Duo is played is a short 3-minute match, and you can play your color card in, you can put it into that match, hope that you're going to win for that. And that match is part of a longer round. So let's say that round is an hour long. Well, if each match is 3 minutes, you can play 20 matches over the entire round. And we want to look at that as like each match is a block and each round is an epic, right? And so you can start to weave in this education where we really only have to consider on-chain transactions at the end of the round, right? So we can have this roll-up time or this cool-down time before the next round starts, which allows us to run all those back-end processes kind of in big chunks instead of like all right at the point of gameplay.
Gotcha. Like ties into that dynamic process that you were talking about. Yeah, okay. Very, very cool.
There's a lot of tools out there that build great games, right? Unity and Unreal and stuff like that. The integration to like, okay, you have a great game, but then how do we manage this on chain? That's where there's kind of a big question mark. And so our kind of short pitch is, the game developers, you guys know how to build a great game.
Yeah.
Let us help take some of the load off on the trying to figure out and manage the assets and the on-chain stuff. So that's kind of what Revelar's vision is.
So what does the process look like now for game developers building on Unreal and Unity to integrate with Revlar?
So we're taking a really hands-on approach at this point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a launchpad model where we have open applications now. So you can come to us and we talk a lot about your game and the game mechanics, because oftentimes if it's a fairly pre-built game, we may need to like refine or work with the developers to match those game mechanics to the right on-chain consolidation, for example. The asset elements are usually pretty simple, but even something as simple as like character design, like should that be a random PFP? Or should that be like you get to create your own PFP and you pay for that? Like, I find it really weird that we all like get these random PFPs and then every game you just make your character.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I want this character.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of back and forth that goes into figuring out what that looks like, and then we want to support an enterprise grade kind of hand-holding experience all the way through mint and development, or mint and deployment of their games. So we're working with a couple of games right now. We use our game Duo as kind of the flagship model.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of ahead of everything else. And then we work with, there's actually a couple of games we're working to try and bring onto Cardano. And maybe even do some like shadow assets where, they may have their assets on other blockchains and we mimic that on Cardano, and then we would allow for kind of a burning and like onboarding into Cardano. So like burn the asset off of this chain and like bring it over on Cardano.
My next question was around interoperability and what that might look like for you guys. Like, will you support other chains, or are you burning and reminting and absorbing them over to Cardano?
It's early days for us. Like, yeah. I don't know that we have a good answer to like what that looks like today. Yeah. We're very open to working with other chains. I mean, running the NFT gaming podcast, we've interviewed so many games across different chains. It's been a lot of fun learning from them of like what advantages do their chains have maybe over Cardano in some aspects, like or what kind of drawbacks. And it's usually pros and cons. Like, an advantage would also be a potential weakness for that chain. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of different, every chain kind of has its own role, right? And so we just want to be really open to all of the other projects. Like a rising tide raises all ships. That's something we say all the time, right? So we want to be supportive of great games that are building on other chains, or even building off chain, and maybe they're just their curiosity is piqued by this whole Web3 asset ownership mantra. So we're hoping that Revelar can be a catalyst for that's a dangerous word in this ecosystem. Not project catalyst, but like the starting point for games and gamers who want to come on chain and experience true ownership. So whether that means working with a game from another chain to come onto Cardano, or bringing a Web2 game into Cardano, or building natively on Cardano, we hope that we can be a good support for and a good resource for all of those games.
All right, absolutely amazing. What is the timeline looking like? Like it sounds like you're already onboarding other games into the platform. Yeah. I know Duo is progressing as well, so I'd like to get a timeline on that to see when the web interface stuff starts to launch. Yep. What are we looking at?
I think we're going to have, gosh, this is so dangerous. I hate saying this as the engineer. Our best case scenario is having a closed alpha by the end of October for Duo on the web app.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, we're pretty close. And the good news is that all rides on me to get done, so I just put my own timeline on myself.
Ship this video tomorrow.
Ship
no, I'm just kidding.
No, but and that's going to be focused to kind of our current cohort of players. So people who have Genesis deck cards. We just did kind of an expansion pack experiment with Disco Solaris.
Oh my God! Yeah, I did not see that.
Yeah. So we're releasing a claimable deck or claimable packs on October 20th. and that was gifted by the cartel, or the Jarl cartel, inside of the Disco Solaris lore.
Okay.
And so they wanted to like work with us to run this experiment and say, let's theme it into the story. And we have an incredible lore-based story of Bradford J. Wilshire kind of creating this game.
Who is a disco.
Yeah, he's a disco PFP, creating this game on the journey to Mobius 9, which is the planet they're traveling to.
Oh my God. I'm on a flight on the 20th, so I have to get someone to mint it for me.
Yeah.
300 packs available to claim. So this is our first kind of experiment into what does it look like to really bring collaboration among different projects. That's something we're really excited about.
So I'm excited. This is cool.
Permissionless, the Web3 space is kind of permissionless communities. And so we didn't originally work with the team over at Disco Solaris. We actually worked with community members, community influencers. They wanted to do this, and so we were like, all right, let's do it. And we wrote a lot of content with other community members around Disco Solaris themed lore, and so we kind of weaved this card game in, and we got some influencers to start promoting it, and then the actual studio that is building Disco Solaris was like, what's going on here? And then they started helping promote it too. So they've been really supportive as well. But that I think is kind of a great mantra for what the future can hold, and it's this idea of if the community adopts something, then that can become part of that culture. And I think that's a really cool aspect of Web3 that's not possible in Web2. And that's one of the things we're really excited about with Web3 gaming and NFTs, and one of the reasons why we're building all of this, right? This is also exciting. So stop by the Disco Solaris booth here at CNFTCon, because we have a trailer and some promotional content around it.
All right. I'm going to go down there and check it out. I think it's everything's closing up really soon. But Jason, Jacob, so glad I got to talk to you guys about this and learn a little bit more about where you guys are up to. I'm pretty excited about the future for it. So good luck with the rest of the development, and I'm looking forward to the mint on the 20th and the potential alpha on the end of October as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
it's
what
good
you
to
do.
see you again, always.
Now I'll leave the links and references and everything that you guys need. So if you're in the GameFi space and you're looking to use this type of service to be able to mint your NFTs, your game assets, whatever it is, and you want to use their platform, check it out. All the links down below for you guys so you can learn a little bit more about it. Now, if you got something out of this video, if you absolutely love the NFT space, GameFi, and anything else, I've got a whole bunch more interviews coming out around NFTs, the gaming space, more interviews from CNFTCon as well. So please make sure you give me that thumbs up, click the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you hear more from me real soon.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.